Well, it looks like we have the second coming of the Lord. It's close. Things are heating up. Be careful. It's hot, and this doesn't seem like a joke anymore. Well, there are people here who are really excited and others who are holding their heads in disbelief. I'll explain now what I think about Mourinho, because there's something that really attracts me, something I really like, and something else that I don't like as much. Y otra cosa que no. First, two things. We'll discuss Mou shortly. I really sincerely ask you to please take a look at the previous video, the one right before this one. I'll overlay it at the end of this video. It'll be one of the two that appear. That's the one. Because I've noticed it has had fewer views than it usually gets, and I don't do this. Well, I don't do it with all the videos, but there are some that you really have to watch. And if it seems long to you, just play it at 1.5x or 2x speed. You'll still understand me just fine. And besides, I talk much faster. It seems like that, but really you have to watch it, please. With this guy's statements, with what Tebas said, with, well, a bunch of things. And we'll keep going on about this story. But, well, okay. The match, today's match, man. Today's match. What an absolute marvel. What an absolute marvel of a match. At a totally different pace, There were situations, an incredible situation. By the way, the penalty awarded to Paris Saint-Germain wasn't a penalty. I think they made up for it later. They almost evened it out. It almost evens out, right? But this stands out because, look, I also noticed one of these Arniano guys replying to me, a fan of the corrupt club that paid the referees second in command for 20 years. He says, what about this one? What about that one? Honestly, they never understood that this hand is perpendicular to the body, that it's closed, that it's vertical, and that this is not a penalty, because they've already explained why this is not a penalty. They've already explained it, but these people don't understand anything. They absolutely don't get it. It's very different from when a hand is like this or like this. I think you can see me, right? I don't know if you can see me. But anyway, you get what I mean. I mean, whatever. I wasn't planning to mention this, but I noticed it. This can't be real. Well, actually, it can happen because they're like a wall. It's like talking to a wall, man. I mean, they still haven't understood this kind of handballs, even if they're shots on goal, because of how the hands are positioned downwards. It's a different story when you spread them out and take up space. And Alphonso Davies was taking up space here. And of course, the other day, Ricardo Rodriguez was taking up space in the Betis match, the Real Madrid Betis game, right? So, of course, look at this. One is a cross into the box. Now, let's briefly discuss the match, as it deserves mention. But this really outraged me and a lot of people too. One is a cross into the box that actually hits Alphonso Davies in the stomach first. The pass was from Dembele. And then it hits his hand. And the other one was a shot on goal that doesn't hit his stomach or any other part of his body first and goes straight to his hand. Okay, in both cases, there was a Spanish official on VAR, a Spanish referee in the VAR. Here he flags it and it's a penalty, but in the other, he doesn't. With a particular detail, the Spanish referee who was in this VAR had already publicly threatened, before officiating last year from the VAR, the team that was harmed in this case, which was Real Madrid, right? So it's a really crazy situation, isn't it? But anyway, I've been shouting myself hoarse about this for a long time. Now I just take it as a joke. Well, how else are we supposed to take it? Of course, we don't give up naturally, right? But with this and with decisive actions, that's why I told you about it in the previous video, about complaints that are out there and reports to UEFA and FIFA that we are filing. A group of people, some leading the way, of course, legal professionals, the lawyer Juan Luis Martín de Pozuelo. There's also Tomás Rubio, Ricardo Ramos Neira, and so on. A group of people who are trying to move this forward, because there are many people who don't know anything, who don't have a clue, especially internationally. Journalists from abroad have no idea. They know about Negreira because they've heard rumors and such, but they don't know exactly what happened. And there it is. On that website, on this one, I'm also going to take the opportunity to announce it, on this website, on negreiragate.com. The documents, all the numbers, they're telling me that the traffic to the page is absolutely crazy. The key figures are videos. It's got everything, but above all, I think that's the most important thing, and that's why this website was made. Because of the documents, the civil guard reports, everything, absolutely everything. Okay. Well, having said that, of course, it's really striking that this wasn't called a penalty. And this one was, the match has been outrageous. By the way, and I insist on the same thing, This here was not a penalty. In any case, it should have been a foul by Luis Diaz. Let me see if I can find the moment. This one, right? I can't show the image, the movement, but you can see it better here. Where does it look better? Wait, here. Man, it's unbelievable because Pacho puts his leg out, wait here, but Luis Diaz goes in with his studs up. I mean, let's say Pacho tries to get to the ball, he doesn't make it, but Luis Diaz goes in with his studs up. Is that a foul by the Bayern forward? Well, he makes up for it later. These things happen in Europe. I mean, things that, very strict decisions and all that, but at least they get balanced out later. That's why Barca never gets that far. Well, last year they made it to the semifinals. And by the way, there's something really funny about Marciniak that I wasn't going to include in this video. And I just remembered now, man, but how could I not include this? Look, this thing about Marciniak is really funny. A content creator asks him, the other day, the last year's referee from the match between Inter and Barcelona, and he says the following to Marciniak. He says, hey, I'm really mad at you because let's watch the video for a bit, but I'll translate it as we go. He says, well, I'm really mad at you. Because last year in the match against Inter and all that, did you screw Barca over? And he says, no, I didn't screw Barca over. I actually helped Barca by accident, and it was Barca who corrected me. If we're honest, my calls in the Inter-Barcelona game favored Barcelona, but Barca corrected me. That's life. He told the kid, and the kid didn't even know how to respond. Well, that's it. Come on, let's get back to what we were talking about. This is a foul, like I said, by Luis Diaz, but as for the match itself, I think they've shot at Neuer 5 times, although in the end, I'm not sure if it was a bit more, but out of 5 shots on him, they've scored 5 goals. And Neuer was the best against Madrid, especially in the first leg. But the speed, the intensity they play with, none of them stroll, none of them walk. Will Arbeloa show this match to his boys in that coach-killing locker room? Or will watching a 2-hour match make them dizzy? Or is he going to ration it out in small shorts in small 30-second TikTok reels so they don't get dizzy? And look, we played a good match against Bayern, but of course, just one match, right? One match, just one match. They've been playing well all season, playing matches like these all season. And at Madrid, well, yeah, you get to the Allianz, and you're there, or like in the second half, for example, at the Bernabeu, right? Well, yes, but of course, then against Girona, one against Getafe, one against Mallorca, one against Mallorca, one against Mallorca, you're not a consistent or regular team. These guys, yes, these guys play, they know what they're doing, and then there are patterns. There's a bit of that madness because they go on the attack like crazy, but they know that if they all move and if they make attacks, already prepared in training, they know the moves they have to make to create overloads, to attack where it hurts the opposing team the most, preparing for the matches, knowing who they're up against. Xavi Alonso tried to do things he wasn't allowed to, and now Arbeloa is trying to, but he's in a locker room where Xavi wasn't allowed to do it either. Here it's more difficult because you come in with no time and with everything on the line, so there's just no time. It's very complicated. So who's going to come here? Who's going to come here to change this at Real Madrid? Well, it will have to be a strong man, and we'll get to that in a moment. But to finish with the match, I had a great time. I mean, it was something spectacular. Paris Saint-Germain got up to 5-2. Then Bayern said, what? Scored 2 more goals, and Olise. Spectacular. By the way, I don't know what France is going to do in the World Cup, but Olise, man, what a player. Well, I took him off my fantasy team because he got injured with Eber. Because if not, seriously, I'm telling you, sorry, I started coughing. I think Mbappe doesn't have a place in that France team. Dembele scored an incredible goal. It looked like he'd shoot to the far post, but he finished at the near post. Now we see the full play, and there's definitely a leg in there. He doesn't come out for the ball on that goal they score on him. When Neuer stands there, he just freezes like a statue. Still, it's a real pleasure, a true delight. For Madrid, I wish a coach like Company, like Luis Enrique would come. I mean, not Luis Enrique, okay? So don't put words in my mouth that I didn't say, because Luis Enrique could never go to Real Madrid. He's a textbook anti-Madridista. Even though he once kissed the badge after scoring the 4th goal against Barca in a 5-0 win we had, no. But of course, obviously not. But someone like that, a modern coach. A year ago, we were saying, wow, Xabi Alonso is at the right moment to come. Well, look, I mean, not even he could do it. Not even he could. So who has to come? Well, a strong man has to come here. A leader has to come. Now we're going to see something about Luis Enrique, by the way, but I'll leave that for the end because I want to get into the Mourinho topic now. This is David's information. Ornstein and Mario Cortegana in The Athletic say that Jose Mourinho is the president's favorite, that Florentino has had enough and said, well, I'm going to appoint whoever I think I need to appoint. I have more points in favor than against, though I do have some reservations. Although, well, I know where this comes from if all this is true, and now we'll compare it with information from other colleagues. I think I know where this comes from. It comes from an ATAT, Florentino, and that Florentino isn't, I think his diagnosis isn't correct, even though maybe he gets the solution right. Let me explain. I think his diagnosis of saying, no, the ones who aren't good enough here are the coaches because the squad is very good. That's not right. No. I mean, Ancelotti wasn't good enough when he was here with this squad when Mbappe arrived. Xabi Alonso wasn't good enough. Arbeloa wasn't good enough. I don't think that's the right diagnosis, but maybe he comes up with the right solution. It's like, how can I put it? Do you think you're in pain, that you have a certain illness? And you go in there with more than killing a fly with a cannon, and you take a really strong antibiotic and it wipes everything out. Maybe your diagnosis wasn't completely reliable, but the solution, well, you dropped a huge bomb in there. And maybe it fixes that. Well, yes, so Mourinho comes in like that heavy-duty antibiotic, total overkill. He would come in that case, because if we go over things about Mourinho, and now let's get to that talk with Dele Alli, for example, which is fantastic in a documentary they made about Mourinho at Tottenham. So do you see a guy there who's going to tell the players the truth to their face? And now let's listen to something from Di Maria. Let's listen to it now before we get into the whole topic, before seeing the information, because I really like what Di Maria said. In an interview with Di Maria, analyzing the coaches he's had and so on, check out what he says here about Mourinho. And what he says about that argument with Cristiano and about what Jose was like is really good. For a guy who, Di Maria at first started out like that, he's always been a very unique footballer, and Mourinho managed to set him straight. And then, well, winning the World Cup with Messi, very pro-Messi and all that, but here he acknowledges the great guys of the last decade, right? Mourinho, for example, Cristiano, you'll never hear him speak badly about any of them. And above all, this is what he said about the Portuguese coach.
Mourinho, a phenomenon. Honestly, he's crazy, really, totally out there. With me, he was always a good guy. What did he do? Tell me. He would start swearing in the locker room. He'd fight with anyone. He didn't care at all who it was. He didn't care about anything. Once he even fought with Cristiano in the locker room, started saying he didn't run, that everyone else ran for him. No, he didn't care about anything, nothing. I have an anecdote about him. He had 4 yellow cards. He told me, if you get a yellow card in this match, I'll give you 4 days off. And I went in and made a terrible tackle. It was almost a straight red. They gave me a yellow card, and he gave me 4 days off.
There's also something here. I think the beginning is really good because he's a guy who's going to show up and say, what do you mean? If you refuse to run when I ask you to attack as a striker and instead want the ball in the center, ignoring my instructions, then to hell with you. He did that to Cristiano. But I don't like the second part Di Maria mentioned as much. That whole scene we created in Amsterdam so that Ramos and the other one, I think it was Xabi Alonso, would get their yellow card so they'd miss the next match and all that. I mean, this with Di Maria, it's Mourinho, then he's a guy. Now, if all this is true, we're going to have a great time. I mean, it's going to be an incredible thing journalistically when it comes to YouTube channels. It's something spectacular. He won't keep quiet about anything regarding the paid-off refs and all that. Now then, there are things that really bother me when he didn't want to talk about the Negreira thing, but, well, that's his decision. Maybe next time he will. Well, of course, that's just his role. Mourinho is with Madrid and all that, and he's going to want the best for Madrid, but also Mourinho is basically Team Mourinho. I mean, Mourinho is an egocentric guy, himself first, but I like that he brings order to the locker room, and he doesn't care if one is called Vinicius and the other Mbappe. He doesn't care. But the other one is the one with Vinicius. Recently, with the Prestiani thing, he took Prestiani's side and told Vinicius something. I criticized him here, but how can you say why he celebrated that way? I think there were people there, even pro Mourinho, like I consider myself, who didn't like it. And I think in this case, it clouds a possible arrival a bit for me. But I'll tell you something, okay? I mean, it's not something that disqualifies him for me, not at all. If he comes to set things straight, I don't care what he said about Prestiani or who needs to adapt. Here, Vinicius will have to adapt, and that'll be wonderful. Vinicius and Mbappe both. Let them adjust to the coach, not the other way around. We've seen this with Xabi Alonso and company and Arbeloa. But let's get back to the topic of information. This is what, as I said, David Ornstein says about Mourinho. He says Mourinho is the preferred candidate for Florentino Perez to be the next coach of Real Madrid. This information was reported together with Mario Cortegana. The 63-year-old now becomes a major contender among Real Madrid's candidates. Of course, if Florentino wants him, when Florentino sets his mind on something, among the candidates, the one who starts from the most advantageous position is definitely the one who is the president's favorite. Because Florentino is going to say, you chose the last two coaches for me, and I don't want any more of that. I want the one I want. He has a 3 million release clause with Benfica. And on the other hand, they were saying, who said this? Fabrizio Romano. Fabrizio Romano has also said that Mourinho, he would have already told Madrid, yes, that he has no problem. That's what Fabrizio Romano said. But I'm going to read some other information from Sergio Valentin, who, of course, deserves the credit. I'm going to read this from Sergio Valentin, who said, in a few minutes, I'll give some information about Jose Mourinho and Real Madrid. 3 days before the first leg against Bayern, Jose Angel Sanchez calls Jorge Mendes to discuss the club's interest in bringing Mo back. By the way, there are people saying that Jose Angel Sanchez from Portugal is the one who doesn't want Mourinho to come. But here Sergio Valentin says that Sergio Valentin from the radio is probably on paternity leave now, which he deserves, so he's a bit out of the loop. Still, he loves rock and roll and immediately joined in when he heard. Greetings, Sergio, if you're watching. As I said, we're discussing your information now. So that's it. Jose Angel Sanchez calls Jorge Mendes to meet up and tells him about the club's interest in bringing Mo back. Second, Mendes says Mo can leave Benfica anytime due to a clause, but surprisingly, he isn't interested in returning to Madrid. His time there is over, and the personal and family toll he paid in Madrid was devastating. Third, 2 days after the second leg against Bayern, it's Florentino Perez who calls Jorge Mendes, whom he hadn't spoken to since Cristiano left a long time ago. Florentino lets him know, fourth, that he will call Mourinho to tell him he wants him back and will inform Jorge Mendes so he doesn't think anything is being done behind his back. Surely here Florentino is going to say, hey, maybe I haven't spoken to him in a long time and now I'm going to talk directly to Jose. I talked to Jorge Mendes first. Fifth, the next day that call happens. Mo tells him the same thing that Jorge told Haas, but Florentino insists on having a personal meeting with him face to face. That meeting will be before May 3rd. It still hasn't happened yet then. What is the deadline set by Florentino to make a decision? Where will the meeting be? He says, in Lisbon. Mourinho has agreed to meet, so his no isn't final. He wants to hear Florentino, as Sergio Valentin mentions. 8, message for colleagues. If you're going to take any detail, give credit. Well, I've already credited you here, Sergio. As I said, there are people who are saying it, but when 3 professionals in this field are already saying it, and they're and I also trust David a lot, of course, and Sergio as well. But anyway, the one from, what's this called? Where Cortegana also works. Damn, I forgot. Jeez. The guy from The Athletic is a very reputable person, right? When it comes to information about transfers, etc. When there are already 3 guys saying this, it's because things are heading in that direction. Whether it will actually happen in the end, we don't know. But it has a lot of signs of being real. We'll see. I'm not going to show you the Dele Alli thing, but remember it. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Because it was really something. I love this conversation with Dele Alli in the video, in the documentary that Mourinho made about Tottenham, or that they made about Tottenham. And it happens with Mourinho before the pandemic, if I remember correctly. He gave Dele Alli a talking to, really laying into him and even calling him a bastard, but in a good way, you know, like a father, like a father. He says you have talent, but don't care about anything. And what happened to Dele Alli? That's why I like this about Mourinho, because he tells them things to their face and what they need to hear. Like Luis Enrique. And that's what I'm getting at. There's something wonderful here about Luis Enrique. Wait, because there are two things. It's not here. It's here. Luis Enrique, during halftime of a Paris Saint-Germain match when he was coaching Kylian Mbappe, goes and says this.
We're making a substitution. Colo, you're in. Kiki, you're out. We're defending like this. Stay alert. 4-4-2. No stepping out. Here, we don't step out.
Knowing Luis, I wasn't surprised.
He says this, the Portuguese guy, the director, knowing Luis, says he wasn't surprised. There was something about Mbappe and all that. Then he says, wait a second.
It was difficult for Kylian
to spend so much time on the bench or in the stands. Then Luis Enrique says this.
Let him go to the stands, do a handstand, or do something that doesn't affect the team or his coach. Let him stay in the stands. He's not going to play anymore. I've substituted him, right?
Let's see. I know many of you dislike Luis Enrique, but I need someone like him in the Real Madrid locker room, a guy with balls who carries them around in a wheelbarrow. This guy, whatever you say, as much of a Barcelona fan as you want to say he is, but with the balls this guy has, that he comes in and says, you, Mbappe, I don't care. I'll take you off because you're not helping my team, because I don't want to, because you're not playing the way I ask you to play. By the way, when he says that, look at Agraf's gaze at Mbappe. Pay attention.
We defend like this. Pay attention.
Agraf looks at Mbappe as if to say, man, he's taking you off. That was an important match. He spoke to them in Spanish, but Luis Enrique didn't care. He'd tell Kolo Muani, you're in. And what Spanish would Kolo Muani even know? Mbappe would. But anyway, he just didn't care. I mean, that's it. I see a Mourinho who comes in and does those things. He's not going to pat them on the back. He's not going to cuddle these guys. Maybe that's what Real Madrid needs. So you say Mourinho? Mourinho. Klopp. Now, Pochettino, let Arbeloa continue, because Arbeloa is going to have a great career as a coach, by the way, I think, right? But, man, no, because we're already seeing what Mbappe is doing on the field, and there are no consequences. So, well, I want a leader because of the karmic cycle that Collins talks about, right? I want a leader. That's clear. Don't take this out of context. In the Real Madrid locker room, you know, a guy who comes in there and does that, right? I hope everything goes well for you. Like the video, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, comment, and share. My videos are really long lately. I ate tongue, so I really feel like talking. Have a good night. Bye.